Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we will be discussing the kaiju that have the possibility to become unimaginably large, as far as dwarfing Void Ghidorah's physical form. Without further ado, let's get into it. So a few things to know before we get too far into this video. Firstly, how large is physical form Void Ghidorah? Void Ghidorah's physical form comes in at 20 kilometers, which is very debatable. I personally believe the 2.17 kilometer idea, but it's whatever. Now that does seem unbeatable, but I promise you, Void Ghidorah will be humble throughout this video. Secondly, all of these are very hypothetical. These kaiju have the ability to become larger, but just haven't on film. Now let's get into it. Kaiju that dwarf Void Ghidorah. The first kaiju we have is Methuselah. Recording script edit here. I couldn't quite find the info to back up what I'm about to say. You know, Godzilla stand style. But more or less, I'm trying to get across that Methuselah kind of infuses himself into the landscape. But I do want to say I couldn't really find any exact proof on what I'm about to say. Just roll with it. It's just have a fun time, turn your brain off, Fast and Furious movie kind of way. Methuselah's first on-screen appearance is in Godzilla, King of the Monsters. He is shown to be 322 feet tall, which I know what you're thinking, that's nowhere near tall enough. Well, my faithful fans... and haters. That's where you're wrong. Methuselah, along with all the other kaiju we're to cover, have the unique ability to change their body size and shape. Methuselah is a kaiju mostly made of rock and nothing else. His body size is determined on where he rests. Over time, he more or less inhabits or infuses himself into the landscape. Easier way to put it, Big Rock Monster turns into Big Rock where he take nap. Now let's get really outlandish. Let's say, somehow, we get Methuselah to Mars, where he can now inhabit the largest mountain in our solar system, Olympus Mons, which for reference is 2.3 times taller than Mount Everest, at a height of 21,229 feet, and an unbelievable length of 374 miles long, or 624 kilometers long, making him the first kaiju to dwarf Void Ghidorah, coming in at 30 times longer, easily being the first to take the crown.
Hi, editing Godzilla Guy here. I do want to say, some of this math might be wrong. These are massive, massive numbers. Run your own calculations if you want, but just, take it with a grain of salt that some of these might be wrong. But I do believe, I double-check, triple-check, I'm pretty sure this math is correct, but just know, it might not all be, so go ahead and check if you want, but yeah, enjoy the video.
But what if I told you we can get even larger? Next up, we have Amulet. Amulet has a very unique ability that not many other kaiju have, which is telekinesis. Though Amulet isn't too skilled with this ability, he was able to use it to make an entire body out of a swamp. To simplify, Amulet is really only a head and a small portion of a neck. He uses his insane mind to use telekinesis to build his own body. Now if we were to stretch his ability to its limit, and say Amulet more or less perfected his telekinesis, he could get unimaginably large. I don't want to push too far into insanity though, so I'll just guess that a perfected Amulet could use an entire country, and maybe as far as a continent to build his body. If you were to use the American continent, he would be 719 times longer than Void Ghidorah. But once again, we can get even larger.
You saw that correctly. We have a sponsor for today's video. Shown on screen are some of the awesome products Rip City Kaiju was kind enough to send out. Let's take a look. Starting with this little Godzilla, this guy is a water squirter. If you saw my YouTube short on the Mecha Godzilla, this is pretty much just the regular Godzilla version. And speaking of the Mecha, oh, so thick. Next up is this 50th Memorial weighted Godzilla ball. I thought it was cool because all the little red dots are where monsters appear in the film, which I thought was really cool. Next up is this, questionable Godzilla. Not really, it's a little marble shooter. The idea is that you get little playing cards and shoot at it and try and knock them over. Now the main thing, this electronic Mecha Godzilla. This thing is over 20 years old, older than me. It was made in 2003, and there's a multiple pack series, but this is the one they were kind enough to send out. Now I'm gonna be completely honest, I didn't even think this thing would work given it's 20 years old, but the light still worked and it still moves. If you want to pick up your own little Godzilla knickknacks or even just big figures, make sure to check out the first link down below. That will be a direct link to Rip City Kaiju's eBay store where you can get all sorts of awesome little products. Thank you Rip City for sponsoring this video, greatly appreciate it, and back to it.
Next up, another monsterverse kaiju, the beast that chased Godzilla for millions of years, Shinamura. Now Shinamura is kind of a combination of Destroyer and Ghidorah. He can split his body if he needs to, being able to become multiple life forms, and grows quite a bit depending on how much radiation he takes in. In one of the coldest lines in Godzilla Awakening, it is stated that if he gets enough radiation, he could block out the sky. Now, I'm not even going to attempt to do the math to figure out how much land that is, but if we were to just guess, he pretty much takes up the entire atmosphere. He would be our first planet-sized kaiju. But wait, there's more. Space itself gives off its own radiation, meaning if he chilled in space for a few million years, he could grow larger than our sun, solar system, and maybe even galaxies. Meaning if you were to grow to the size of the Milky Way, he would be 50 trillion times larger than Void Ghidorah. Now, off script here, I want to add this in. Going back down in size, Mecha Godzilla. You know, if humans were to have an insane budget for Mecha Godzilla, if you were to just take all the cities that humanity has built, and put it into one giant mecha, it would most likely be larger than Void Ghidorah. And finally, though it hurts me to say, I'll give in just this once. We have Shin Godzilla. Now, apparently, in movie interviews it's stated, by God knows who, that Shin could just keep mutating, to the point where he could fly and even travel through different universes and realities. So if we were to say he kept mutating and growing, and growing, and growing, and growing, well, he could quite literally stretch through different realities, making him well over the size of a single universe. Making him... oh, God. Making him 4.1 quadrillion times larger. That's not even fun anymore. And there you go, everyone. Kaiju that could dwarf Void Ghidorah. Now let me know if you want to see any future videos like this. I'd love to read some recommendations in the comments below. Keep collecting, everyone. Godzilla Guy out.